It's the art versus the artist, and how do I separate the two? Can I separate the two? Can I support his artistry without supporting the artist? Is there a possibility in doing that? To be honest with you, I don't know. But what I will say is we all have a level of personal accountability to be mindful of not only the things we say, but the things that we do and how it affects other people. And so we just have to know that some of the people that we admire are definitely going to make mistakes that are going to fall into the realm of, hey, this is not something that I probably should be supporting, or this is not something that aligns with my political or social values. Therefore, I can't support any of it, or I will just support the art. It's definitely up to you, but you just know that that energy doesn't just stop when you turn off that person's music, or when you take off their sneaker, or when you're not watching the television show. That energy it's there. It's a frequency and it exists, and they have to be responsible for that as well. So, yeah, I just find it all to be really fucked up, you know? Like, we're finding out that all these people that we've given kind of superhero iconoclasty to are human and stupid. Okay, so let me just share something with you really quick because, you know, as I power through the inner workings of being in a relationship. It just sounds weird when I even say it. It just sounds so weird. But as I power through all of that, one of the recent themes that have come up is punishment and accountability. Okay, so dig it. I'm very much the type of person that I believe the way that you are raised has a lot to do with the way that you love. And the way that I was raised was that there were consequences to me not making, responsible decisions as a learned young lady or what have you. And with that said, I think that there were definitely times that I learned that, okay, if she's not behaving a certain way, then she needs to be punished until she can correct that behavior. I think what I learned from that was not necessarily to behave better, but perhaps even to deceive better, right? And I think that that's a theme that I tend to carry into my relationship where, okay, he's not doing something that I like, so I'm going to punish him, which makes the focus more on the consequence of him not doing something that I like as opposed to the behavior. And why aren't we discussing what led to this behavior? Why aren't we focusing on understanding the behavior as opposed to the consequence? So as I've been exploring this theme in my relationship, I had to get to the point where we could communicate how we would deal with this, because this was a problem for me. And so one of the things that we decided was that, okay, so what does accountability to the relationship means in terms of when you do something, there's an expectation that's there. So for me, it's about responsibility, making amends, and then avoiding the repeat behavior, right? Because everybody knows that accountability cannot come without a level of responsibility. So I can't expect you to be accountable for something that you don't even know how to be responsible for. You're not responsible for my happiness. You're not responsible for my esteem. I can't make you responsible for all these things that have nothing to do with you. You know what I mean? I'm holding you accountable for things that you're not responsible for. Does that make sense? And so I would do things like, oh, I'm not talking to you, or I'm not picking up the phone when you call, or I'm going to punish you by doing certain things. You know what I mean? I'm going to freeze you out. I'm not going to communicate. I'm going to be funny acting. I'm going to be standoffish. I'm going to, have one word answers and all of these things. What I realized and what I got from my partner was you need to understand that punishment actually just produces a self-fulfilling prophecy to me. Because if I already think that you think I'm not shit, when you punish me as a consequence of something that I've done, to me, that's just me stepping into the self-fulfilling prophecy. She thinks I'm not shit, so whatever. She thinks that punishing me is doing something, but really what it is it's getting into who is responsible for his behavior, right? Because if you punish someone, inherently what you're doing is making yourself responsible for their behavior. So in order for me to get elicit the kind of behavior I want from you, I'm going to punish you. And that's kind of a level of power as well, right? So I think it's very important for us to understand how we love and the tactics in which we use to love and the tactics in which we use to control or dominate our relationship. And where do those things come from? I never wanted to have a relationship where it would be like sneaking around or doing things to avoid the honesty. I always, excuse me, I always want to get to the point where, we understand that there can be guilt for a behavior, but I never want there to be shame. And oftentimes what punishment does is it breeds a level of shame, which says I am wrong as opposed to I did something wrong here. And if I could get to a point where the focus is more on understanding behaviors as opposed to trying to manipulate and control behaviors, then I don't have to go out with an 18-year-old boy like Black China. She's still with him, y'all. She's still with him. He's 18 and he looks like he's 12. It's so gross. But nonetheless, let's stay focused. So that's what I came up with for my relationship. Responsibility. Okay, how do we get to a level of accountability where we avoid punishment altogether, right? Because punishment does not teach. Punishment in a relationship when it comes to another adult does not teach. Those tactics may work on a child because what you are trying to do is you're trying to create a pattern of corrected behavior. But when it comes to an adult, accountability is not going to be achieved through punishment. Icing you for 3 days is not going to bring forth a long-lasting level of consistent positive behavior to our relationship. We're only going to get that with responsibility, with a level of atoning or making amends for the thing that you did wrong, and then trying to avoid the behavior in the future. Now, again, I have to repeat to you that there cannot be a level of accountability without responsibility and vice versa. You need someone to be responsible in order for them to be accountable. So if you have been making punishment a part of your routine for your relationship, I challenge you this week, and it doesn't even have to be a amorous relationship. Perhaps even between you and a parent, or you and a sibling, or you and a friend. Punishing someone as a means of correcting their behavior can only be just kind of this vicious cyclical cycle, because the same way that you've learned to love, never take for granted that someone has learned to love in a completely different way. So while you're pushing your tactics, they're pushing theirs as well. And what we want to do is exist in a world where mindfulness, responsibility, and accountability exists for our behaviors, because nothing happens in a vacuum. We don't want to live in this world where it's like, oh, my life is just happening to me. Your life is based on a level of decisions that you've made in the past. So when you think about that, you give all the power to yourself. Everything that I'm living right now is a decision that I've made in the past. So with that said, if I make better decisions, I can control my fate that much more. If I not punish this person, but I seek to understand and I seek to have a more fulfilling relationship, then I don't want to punish someone for offending me. What I want to do is get to a level of understanding so that you can be accountable for your behavior. And that does not mean that we'll have this burgeoning, amazing behavior. But what it does mean is I am no longer responsible for how you treat me. You're responsible for how you treat me. You are responsible for that. You are also responsible for your behavior. I don't want to be in a relationship where I'm responsible for someone's behavior. And the way that I get them to behave is through corrective action. You start to feel like you're dating your kid. And nobody wants that. You start to feel like the relationship has become taxing and burdensome, even if it's not an amorous relationship. If I have to correct you all the time, if I have to punish you, or if I feel like that's what I have to do, it's probably not going to be a fulfilling relationship. So again, responsibility, amends, and avoidance. All right? Thank you guys so much for listening. You can catch us on every single platform that you listen to podcasts on. And guess what, y'all? We back on iHeartRadio. That's right. You can catch us on iHeartRadio as well as Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Anchor FM, and Radio Public, and just anywhere where you listen to your favorite podcasts. Thank you guys for listening. Don't forget to drop your comments and your emails to your girl. Follow us on social media. God willing and the crook don't rise. We'll be back next week. Peace.
The podcast you just heard was recorded with Anchor. If you want to make your own, download the Android or iOS app completely free from anchor.fm/podcast. That's anchor.fm/podcast.